welcome to the video. If you're a returning viewer or subscriber, good to see you again. If you are new here, appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. This week is all about recovery. I just finished my half marathon training block and now we are recovering for a week before we get into the bridge plan that I have going into my 50K training. Recovery week can sound like you're just sitting around doing whatever you want, but if you really want to optimize what you're doing, there's some practical things and steps that you can take to ensure that you are allowing your body to get as much recovery as it can, both physically, mentally, in that week, rather than just kind of letting things go as they would normally. You can prioritize some particular aspects of your life to ensure that you are getting what you need out of the week. Starting with probably one of the most important things for recovery is sleep. There's a variety of things and topics that we can go into, and this is by no means going to be comprehensive, but I want to go through a couple things that I try to focus on when it comes to sleep to ensure I am optimizing as much as I can. The first thing is trying to ensure that my bedtimes and wake up times are as regular as possible. That's not always the easiest. Sometimes you have to get up earlier to get training in or to go to work. Sometimes you have to stay up later for those same reasons. That doesn't mean that you have to be wildly inconsistent. If you vary an hour here or there, that's not going to throw you off a ton. But the more you can put your body into a rhythm, just like anything, the easier it's going to be for you to wake up feeling restored and for you to go to bed at night because it's what your body's rhythm is naturally used to. The other thing that's super helpful for sleeping, even at night, or if you're taking any kind of nap during the day, is having an optimal environment, making sure it's quiet enough for you, making sure it's as dark as it can be. If you don't like sleeping in pitch darkness around you, invest in an eye mask, and if it's not particularly quiet where you're sleeping, ensure that you have some earplugs, some over-ear headphones, something that can do noise cancellation for you, help you set up that optimal environment for sleep. Also, you want your room to be fairly cool so that you can drift off into sleep, but make sure that you have sufficient enough blankets and other things to keep you warm enough throughout the night. Part of the thing that wakes you up in the morning is actually your body temperature rising, and as your body temperature rises, that wakes you up naturally. So you don't want to be absolutely freezing. You want to find a good balance, but your ambient room temperature does need to be cooler than your day-to-day living space is. Another part of sleep that I have really just started to figure out for myself is taking power naps, and I know that's thrown around a lot and there's a lot of different variations of what that can mean, but for me, I've really found that it's hugely beneficial for me to even take 15 to 30 minute naps, and one thing that's really boosts that is the use of theta waves while I'm sleeping. There's a lot of different ways that you can access that. I personally use a great podcast that I found that's just an hour of theta waves. It's fairly consistent, kind of melodic sound that helps you fall asleep and get into a restful state quicker. The idea is that the ambient sound is aligning your brain so that it gets into that theta wave rhythm quicker, and it helps you recover at a higher rate. There are the kind of high advanced versions like New Calm. I haven't used them, but I know that there are plenty of people who have had great results. For me personally, the podcast that I use seems to have really great effects and helps me to feel very rested even when I'm just doing 15 or 30 minute naps, and that really takes a lot of the pressure off of what a typical nap would be. In the past, I always felt like it had to be an hour or so to feel like I was getting the benefits of it, but doing it in this manner, even if my intention isn't to sleep, sometimes I will do a calm kind of meditative state with that, and it will still help me to feel very, very energized going forward for the rest of the day. So highly advise that you integrate that in any way that you can. And even if you're not doing the theta wave stuff, I think powering down, letting your brain rest when you can, whether it's in between sessions, between work and running, or any other time that you just need a little bit of rest to help your brain reset, help your mental energy perform, and help you push your body forward, is something that has been super beneficial to me in my training, so hopefully it would be helpful for you as well. The last thing I'll mention on sleep is some people, I think, going into a recovery period or window might think that, man, my recovery is going to be off the charts. I'm going to sleep amazing because I don't have all of this extra load on me, and my recovery is going to be amazing. And if you're tracking with an Oura Ring or a Whoop like I do, you might notice that you're not getting spectacular recoveries right out of the gate. And that might be unique for each person, but for me personally, I've noticed that when I go from a regular night of sleep and a regular training schedule where my body's used to being depleted at the end of the day, and then I'm going to recovery, I think there's a couple different things that are happening. A, my body's not fully depleted. So it's not getting into a restful state like it's used to. Just the balances in my body are a little bit different because it's not having to use all of that energy throughout the day. Secondarily, I think your body's doing a lot of work and it's reducing a lot of inflammation. So your sleep might not be as restful, might not be as deep during that period. For me, I noticed it was at least just the first 3 days, and then that's where I started to see the spike and it really picked back up into being a much stronger 80s to 90s recovery. Just something to keep in mind. Don't be discouraged if you are recovering and you're like, my sleep is terrible. Your sleep might not be terrible, but your body's doing a lot of work in the background to repair a lot of built up inflammation and wear and tear from that training block you just did. The next thing I'll talk about, and probably the second most important, is what you eat. For me, having a high volume of food during a recovery week is just as important as having that high volume when you're not running. Of course, there are differences as far as your caloric output, but I think your body is doing so much repair, doing so much work to reduce your inflammation that it's hugely beneficial to continue to give it the calories that it's used to so that it can use that as the building blocks to repair your body. With that in mind, I will try to reduce carbs as I can and implement healthier fats and proteins and bring that up a little bit because I don't feel that I need as much of the energy from carbs as I typically would. So I'll supplement those with more proteins and fats, which are really beneficial for muscle repair, and I'm not getting excess calories from just eating a ton of extra carbs that my body's not necessarily using for energy output. Thought it'd be helpful to go ahead and just show you a full day of eating at this point. So we'll jump into that and then I will come back to you after we are done with that little piece.
Sarah just made a delicious breakfast for us, and this is pretty typical of what we'll eat when we have time to make breakfast in the morning. I usually do at least 4 eggs, then some avocado and hot sauce. Then for some fiber and carbs, do a whole apple and then a English muffin or a bagel. And I'll usually add some jam or butter on that to add a few extra carbs and a little healthy fats and proteins.
I mean, if you say so. I don't know how many oatmeals people have to compare to, but I guess we'll see if this is better than the one other oatmeal I've tried. Just got this from Costco, organic oatmeal, and I'm going to make some of my protein oatmeal for breakfast this morning on top of what I already had. Just still feeling a little hungry, so I decided to add a little protein to the mix. This is about the perfect consistency for this. It might look like there's a lot of water in there. That's because there is, and that's because you are going to be adding a scoop of protein, which is going to absorb a lot of that water and soak it up. I'll show you once I mix it in. Basically, the amount of water that you're going to want once you're done heating up your oatmeal. Add the protein in. It's about perfect consistency-wise. You're basically making a protein sludge, but about as spot on as you can get. I always just eyeball it. Sometimes it's a little thicker, sometimes it's a little runnier. Always tastes about the same. I'm going to add some berries to this, and that will finish off this protein.
All right, we added the blueberries. Do a taste test on old Coach's oatmeal here. I wouldn't say it's a better flavor than the Bob's Red Mill that I've had, but it is a different texture. It's a little less flaky, it's a little more milled, but oatmeal's oatmeal. I mean, it's a great price at Costco and can't complain. About to eat lunch, and for today's food, we're having nachos. I think nachos get a bad rap sometimes for being unhealthy, and that's typically because of the way that they're prepared at restaurants, but they can actually be a really quick and easy meal and don't have to be terrible for you. These are pretty straightforward. Half a pound of beef. I have some black olives, pickle de gallo, and some cheese, and then I always do blue corn chips. Just prefer the flavor. Really quick to make. Maybe takes you 30 minutes at the very most if you're having to chop all the olives and all that, but great meal. Another important part of any recovery week for myself is what I do activity-wise to keep my body in rhythm. I'm not going to be running as much, obviously, in this case, but what I do is I bring up my weight training and I also accompany that with some light cardio as the week progresses to keep my body in activity. For my weight training sessions, I will focus on doing full body workouts. I will go and do exercises that I'm comfortable with, maybe try some new exercises. The goal of this is to not put on a bunch of exercise, not overly stress the body, be all sore the next day. It's to keep the body in rhythm and to keep working on those things that I already do week to week, but just doing it maybe in a heavier manner because now I have a little bit more energy to give to it, or pushing myself in newer workouts to try things out that I could implement in my actual training going forward in accompanying running. I think a lot of people in the endurance space particularly tend to neglect weight training and strength training, but I personally think it is super beneficial to your endurance training and your running as a whole. The stronger your body is, your legs, but also your upper body, the better it's gonna function together. The less things that you're gonna have out of balance, the less compensation that you're gonna have for different pieces. I mean, your shoulders do a lot of work when you're running, right? It's not just your legs. Your core is moving, chest is moving, your shoulders are moving. The stronger your body can be overall, the better you're gonna perform. That doesn't mean you have to be a huge bodybuilder, muscular person. If you're running a lot and you are lifting consistently and you have a strong physique, it's only going to make you stronger and better. And as we've seen, and as we're starting to see a lot from a lot of content creators in the endurance space, the more you emphasize weight training, the less you're going to be injured in general. There are so many injuries and strains and things that could be made up for or prevented if you just train proactively. That's something that I don't think a lot of people think about. They're running, hoping they don't get injured, assuming that that's enough. Then they go to a PT and the PT says, do all these exercises. And then they do all those exercises to make up for the deficit that they have. You can get ahead of that deficit. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you go and do what you can to get faster and get stronger so that you can just continuously train and progress rather than train up to the point of an injury, progress a little bit, and then so on and so forth. Having weight training as part of your running training is super beneficial, and that's why during these training weeks, I will try new workouts and different movements to see if I can integrate them into my endurance training going forward. I will also do light cardio as the week progresses. I think I took the first 2 or 3 days off this week to just let my body completely rest cardiovascularly, and then I started to work myself back up into some light cardio. That could be a variety of things. For me this week, it was mostly training on an indoor bike. So I went to the gym, got on the bike for 20 or 30 minutes, kept the heart rate zones very light, zone 1, zone 2. Then I also went on some walks with Sarah. Again, very light cardio, just keeping the body in motion, keeping the cardiovascular system running, but giving it plenty of room to rest and recover. Finally, I do try to overemphasize a lot of the things that maybe I don't regularly do for recovery in a recovery week, that being sauna, foam rolling, stretching. A, to see if there are things that maybe I should implement more regularly or can implement more regularly, but B, also give my body an optimized path to recovery and give it a little bit more of a leg up than maybe it normally has. I think that stretching in particular and using a foam roller and really working those muscles out, moving the inflammation through your body and helping your body to expel it is super beneficial and something that I felt has been really helpful during this entire recovery week and will probably lead me into a strong start going into my bridge training program before my 50K. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel and helps people just like you find this content. If you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so that you see new content right as it comes out. Otherwise, we will see you on Monday.